Alright, in these problems on geometry, we're going to look at angle addition. And angle addition is really just take two angles that perhaps you know what they're equal to. Like we might have JKL, and we might have LKN. If you know what this angle is equal to and this angle, then if we want to know what JKN is equal to, we just add those two together. There's little nuances to these though, and you're going to see here how we can use these idea of just adding angles together to figure out unknown angles. And one of these is an angle bisector. So if we look at an angle bisector, let me move this calculator. So if we have an angle bisector, okay, what that is, it's a line that cuts two angles into two equivalent angles. Okay. So they're equal to each other. So if KL is an angle bisector, that means it cuts angle JKL and LKN into two equal angles. So if we knew that KL was an angle bisector, and then we knew that this angle was 22 degrees, we would know that this cuts us in perfect half, so this would also be 22 degrees. So that's kind of an example of an angle bisector. And in these problems, it's going to give you like things that these angles are equal to, and then we're just going to solve and try to make an equation where they equal each other. So in this angle, the information we have says in the figure below, measure JKM, the whole angle is equal to 94. Okay. The measure of angle LKM is equal to 60, and KN bisects LKM. So this one cuts that angle in half. Okay. So then it says find the measure of angle JKN. So we want JKN, this one, right? So we know the whole thing is equal to 94. We know that this part, smaller part, is equal to 60. And we know that this is an angle bisector, cutting this 60 in half, right? So how can we use that to solve for this angle we want to know, JKN, which is kind of a weird one, right? So how do we do that? So let's look and see what we do know and decide which angles we want to know. Okay, so here, probably our best strategy is the one thing we know is the whole angle. The measure of angle JKM, that's equal to 94, right? And if we can just take away this angle right here, minus subtract this angle, we'll know what this angle is. So we take the whole angle minus that one. So we just have to figure out what the measure of angle NKM is, right? That should be a little closer there. But so we just need to figure out what that is. But we do know, if you remember, it said LKM is equal to 60, and then KN is a bisector of that. So then we would know that this angle is 30 degrees. So then if we just take that, we just go the measure of angle JKM minus the measure of angle NKM gives us the measure of angle JKN, right? Because we're taking this whole angle, we're minusing this out. That should give us that angle we want to know. So then we plug in 94, and then we go minus, this is 30, and that will give us this angle, which will be 64. So then we can just write 64 equals the measure of angle JKN. Okay? So that's kind of our answer there. Let's do one more, and then you'll be ready to try some homework, I'd say. Okay, so we got one here, and we have in this one, we have this angles mixed in here. We have ABD, we have ABC, we have lots of these different angles, right? And here's what it gives us. It says the measure of angle ABD is 88. So this whole thing is 88, right? And the measure of angle CBD, this one right here, is 60, right? And again, this is very similar to the one we just did. BE bisects this, right? CBD. And it says find ABE. So this is kind of similar to the one we just did. If we write down what we know, the measure of angle ABD, that is 88 degrees. And we also know the measure of CBD, that is 60. That's this one. But it also says that it's bisected, right? So then we also know the measure of angle EBD. That also is half of this, because the whole thing is 60, so this is a bisector, cuts it half. We know that EBD is 30, and we know that CBE, which we don't really need to know, it's also 30. Okay. So if we want to find ABE, we just need to know this whole angle, ABD, so the measure of angle ABD minus the measure of angle EBD, that will give us the measure of angle ABE. Okay? So then we just plug in our numbers. Measure of angle ABD is 88. And then we minus measure of angle EBD, that is 30. And that should give us this measure of angle ABE, which is 58. So we just want to rewrite it. 58 equals the measure of angle ABE. Here's a little bit of a different example, and then I think you'll be ready to try some of these, even if some of the problems are a little bit different. Let me fix this. Okay, so we got another one. The last one of these angle addition with angle bisectors. So in the figure below, it says the measure of angle NKM. This little guy here is 23. KL bisects this whole thing, so we know that this angle on this side is equal to that angle on that side. And KN, this one right here, bisects LKM, this whole thing. Okay, so it wants us to find the whole angle, this angle right here, JKL. It wants us to find this one right here. So what is that angle equal to, right? And it really only gives us this NKM, this guy here, right? 23 degrees. Okay. So if we knew something, so if we knew this angle, and this angle, and this angle, if we add them all together, we could get the whole entire angle, right? But this only wants to know JKL. So how can we solve this? So the first one, we know this is a bisector, right? But we also know KN is also a bisector. So then we know that not only is this 23 degrees, but the measure of angle LKN is also 23. So let's just put these down. So the measure of angle LKN is equal to 23 degrees because that's a bisector. And the measure of angle NKM is equal to 23 degrees. Okay? But also it tells us that this angle right here, okay, this line right here is an angle bisector. So that means that it cuts this half LKM into half and makes it equal to JKL. Okay? And we also know that these are also 23. So we know that the measure of angle LKN plus the measure of angle JKL will give us the measure of angle JKN. Right? So if we take this little angle and we add to this angle, we know that they will be equal to the total angle, right? So we know the measure. Do we know the measure of angle LKN? We do. It's 23. Okay. Do we know the measure of angle JKL? Okay. We kind of do, right? Because we know that this is a bisector, and we know that these two are equal to each other. So we know it's 23 plus 23 is 46. And then that will give us the measure of angle JKN, which is this whole thing. So we just take 23 plus 46, 69, equals the measure of angle JKN. And that's your answer, 69 degrees. Okay, so you want to try this homework. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure these notes are in your notebook, and you should be ready to go.